Hi, this is Kim and Curtin with the Wall Street Coach. Today I am talking to you about my 5 practices, and today we're going to talk about practice 5, which is known as self-awareness and mindfulness. The reason I talk about the importance of this practice is because one of the things that facilitates more consciousness, more self-awareness, is the literal practice of mindfulness, is the literal practice of being present to this moment. Now that can be done in a few ways. Some people will be willing to engage in meditation. I am somebody who meditates. I have meditated now for over 7 years, I believe. Probably even before that, maybe 9 or 10 years. The reason I am an advocate for meditation and the reason I personally meditate is I find it connects me to an anchor within, and the universal anchor, if you will. So I want to talk a little bit about what it feels like to be somebody who's self-aware and what it feels like to be somebody who practices mindfulness. Ram Dass is an enlightened teacher who has been around for many years, and one of the things he describes about mindfulness and about meditation and self-awareness, he wrote a book years ago called Be Here Now that I highly recommend, and he says that meditation is simply a lifelong practice of learning how to be here now. If you have any experience with the feeling of like you have to be planning the future or you have to reassess what you did in the past, then you have a really great example of how rare it is for us to be present to this moment. But ultimately, life is only made up of this moment, now. And that is why this practice is so important. It takes time. So I think more than anything, for you to practice self-awareness and mindfulness, I ask you to have patience with yourself. Even if you decide you do want to begin a meditation practice, start out with a small amount of minutes to do that practice with. One of the books that definitely did a lot of good for people who are working in very intense, challenging professions is Dan Harris's book, 10% Happier, where he talks about how and why his meditation practice began. There are a lot of different styles of meditation. I practice a handful of different styles based on what's happening for me personally and based on my needs. I practice some Sanskrit chanting, which is the repetition of a Sanskrit phrase, usually to music. I have what are called mala beads. I'm looking to see if I have them here on the table, but I don't have them to show you. Those are mala beads that help you, especially if you're really distracted and have a lot going on in your mind, to stay focused just on the bead and on the phrase that you're repeating. I also practice Samuel Sagan's Clarivision meditation practice style, which is something I learned many years ago, and that has a lot to do with the breath, and that has been tremendously helpful for me. I am also a big fan of the Art of Living, which is a certain style of meditation practice. There are classes in schools all over the globe that do that and teach that way of meditating. I think the key is finding out what works for you. And if it isn't a mindfulness, if it isn't a meditation practice, I would at least encourage you to just be still every day for even a few minutes and just notice what it feels like in your body, in this moment, in the room you're sitting, in the breeze that's coming in the sun that's hitting your face. It may sound trivial, but you will be amazed at the things you notice when you intentionally try to be present to the moment. It opens up a vista of opportunity for you, and it opens up a calmness of your body, mind, and soul, unlike any other practice will. The other thing that I wanted to share with you was a phrase that I was looking up now by Seth Godin that I really love, because it says so much. He says, instead of wondering when your next vacation is, maybe you should set up a life you don't need to escape from. Now, it sounds probably pretty harsh and insensitive in the sense of what that means, but I would argue that this concept of being self-aware, of being mindful, are the steps to being able to create a life that you don't need to escape from. How many times have you gone on vacation or noticed other people on vacation and they don't seem to really be having a good time? They don't seem to be enjoying or relaxing, or perhaps you can recall when you went on vacation you still were checking work emails, even if you didn't have to. I think all of that is just the example of how challenging it is for all of us to just be present to the moment. The next time, this is a little exercise for you. The next time you're bored, don't pick up your cell phone. The next time you're bored, don't eat something. The next time you feel like, well, I don't know what to do in these remaining few minutes, I ask you to try doing nothing and just notice what it feels like to be in your body, what it feels like to breathe and be the breath as you bring it in, and notice what that feels like to fill your lungs, or just notice the tree out your window if you're lucky to have a window. I promise you, if you begin to practice, even just for a couple of minutes a day, self-awareness, mindfulness, and or the practice of meditation, everything else around you will just get richer in color. So I hope this was helpful. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have and explain them in more detailed form. They are all addressed, these 5 practices, in my book, Transforming Wall Street. I'm going to recap the 5 practices now for you. Practice 1, self-responsibility. Not about self-blame, but about being completely responsible for how you are with all of what's in your life. Practice 2 is self and other empathy. Really learning how to have compassion for yourself, which in turn will facilitate your having compassion for those around you. Practice 3 is the practice that I don't like, but I still practice, which is emotional non-resistance. Learning how to be with the hard to be with emotions. Practice 4 is embracing your heroic journey. The journey that only you know you're called to live, and by embracing it, living the life that you really know you're here to live. Practice 5 is self-awareness and mindfulness, and that's the practice we talked about today. If you have any other questions about these practices, please reach out to Kim at the Wall Street Coach. Thank you for tuning in. I hope these were all valuable for you, and I look forward to next time when I share with you some qualities about leadership and how to really be a leader in today's volatile world. Thank you again. Bye now.